Welcome back to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Terran versus Zerg, where in game number 1 we find ourselves on the golden map. Spotting right here in the top left-hand corner. Playing with the blue Terran pieces. We have the man who recently managed to do some really nice turtle games. I know that's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but I enjoyed watching the man compete quite a bit with the blue Terran pieces. We're looking at none other than Ryung's main command center. I'm hoping we're going to see some more of that as well in this particular series, because I feel like even though it's been common over the last half year or so, over the last few months, we haven't really seen it nearly as much. A lot of Terran players favoring a more aggressive playstyle instead. His opponent, though, down at the bottom right, playing with the red Zerg drones. We're looking at none other than Rogue's main hatchery. Rogue, of course, already reinventing that Zerg versus Terran late game with the mass Nidus worms and all of the shenanigans. So we'll have to see exactly what this series is going to be all about. Because if Ryung decides to start playing very passively right from the get-go, most Zerg players will be very aggressive and they will try to shut that sort of stuff down before it really gets underway. The vast majority of the highest ranked Zergs don't really enjoy playing the long drawn-out macro games against Turtle Terrans that much. But I feel like Rogue, yeah, he's had a lot of success. A lot of Nidus worms. A lot of lurkers in the main base, a lot of shenanigans in general, so maybe, just maybe, action here is going to be on Ryung. Now, admittedly, I haven't seen nearly as many of Ryung's games, at least not compared to, for example, Rogue's. I've only seen a handful of Ryung's games, so it's always nice to get a little bit of an update. So far, I'm mostly just drawing on that previous series I recently casted, where he was sitting back, man, and Shin needed to come across the map with, like, 40 Brute Lords to get the Terran to move out. Let's see. In my mind, I mean, both Rogue and Shin are ridiculously good. This is gonna be a tough one, I think, for Ryung. Ryung, obviously, certainly one of the highest ranked Terrans on the planet, but there is no denying that Rogue and Shin have been more successful in tournaments over the years, and yeah, it certainly comes down to what Ryung decides to go for. Now, Ryung, of course, on the same team as, for example, Maru. Maybe that's also why he likes playing that turtley style quite a bit. Obviously, Maru has pretty much invented that approach. At least in a modern iteration, right? So we have a little bit of a dance here. 6 Zerglings in total. This is, by the way, not played on the new multiplayer balance patch. This is the current live version of the game. At the very least, as of me casting this. So the small adjustments to, for example, the queen cost and the cost of the hatchery, not into effect just yet. Third hatchery goes down. Third command center also building right now inside of the main base. What are you gonna do? Good old starport. Good old starport. Factory is gonna start pumping out Hellions here, 2 at a time. And all of this is very, very normal. We should see a tech lab here in a moment on that barracks to do the big switcheroo. And some Hellion Banshee to keep the Terran player safe. This is by far the most flexible Terran build that you can go for while still having a massive economy. If you play everything well, you should be able to stay alive against basically any aggression from the Zerg. You do have Hellion Banshee, so you can shut down Roach aggression and Link Floods and all that relatively easily. And in the meantime, obviously, you get a super quick third command center going, which means that you don't really have to deal damage on the other side of the map. The other flavors of Terran early game, they kind of require you to deal some sort of damage. If you don't go for a fast third base, you do fall behind economically, but with this type of opener, Terran can mostly match that Zerg eco relatively easily. Roach Warren coming up here for Rogue, nice and quickly. Second gas as well. He's not, however, stopping droning, so this is not going to be a full-on Roach flood with, like, Zerglings on the back of it. But he's probably still going to produce at least, I want to say, like 6 or so Roaches. A couple over here, a couple over there. Defend those choke points here. On Golden Aura, you can get away with relatively easy defense. He cancelled Zergling speed, by the way. Kind of curious. Canceling Zergling speed and then building Roaches like that? Yeah. Alright. Whoa, I said 6! Dude, thank you for making me look good. Thought it was going to be 5 there for a second, but I'm assuming we're going to plant 3 over here and then 3 over here. Come on, make me look good, Rogue. He's got a lair coming up on the back of this. Sometimes, by the way, I make those calls. And I get some people in the YouTube comment section that are like, Lowko, have you like watched the game? Have you pre-watched it? Honestly, that's the biggest caster compliment you can give me, you know? Like, that's like playing a first-person shooter and being accused of being a wall hacker. You know, that's like being accused of being a cheater somehow. No, guys, I just watched a lot of StarCraft. A lot of games have a lot of similarities. Alright, we did not quite split up the roaches like I was hoping, but we are going to be sending them across the map. Now, pre-watching games before casting is pretty lame. Ooh, guys. Sorry, I was yapping about unrelated stuff. We've got ourselves 2 additional factories on the production tab. This is Ryung, 2 armories, going for a mech build. Very curious. Now, this is why roaches in the early game against, triple Hellion, or sorry, triple CC Hellion Banshee is kind of garbage. Yeah, that was expensive. Hey, this is going to be full Terran mech here from Ryung, and at this point, Rogue does not really know exactly yet. Maybe he can sort of count the amount of Hellions he saw there, and not exactly sure how many did he kill. He killed none. At this point, there are 10 available. We are, by the way, still on the old version, of course, here, so we are going to see those Cyclone upgrades still rolling in. This is the upgrade that previously got added to the game, in case you don't live and breathe StarCraft. Like some sort of, you know, crazy person. Like a loco person. Sorry, that was terrible. In the most recent version of the proposed balance patch, so we don't really know exactly yet what it's going to be like, we are going back to an old version of the Cyclone instead. So the Cyclone, not from the previous iteration, but the iteration before that. It changes a bunch of stuff, even though this is, I think, Taran's most recent upgrade. It is also going to be, well, the most recent to get removed. In the meantime, by the way, Rogue hasn't seen exactly what he's going up against, but he's decided to go for what seems to be Swarm Host Nidus? So he's going Roach Ravager, I guess Swarm Host here. Doesn't have to be Swarm Host. He could also just try and pop the Nidus Worm inside of the main base and then maybe send in a couple of roaches that way, but it'll be difficult to really achieve much. We don't see any Swarm Hosts just yet, though. Okay, there we go. Good old Swarm Hosts. I do like seeing Swarm Hosts. Even though we rarely see games where Zerg wins with Swarm Hosts, not super common, it is still certainly a viable option in the right situation. So Rogue apparently believes right now that against Mech, this is the way to go. How many are we gonna make? We see it quite frequently right now in Zerg versus Protoss that they make like maybe 8 Swarm Hosts and then transition straight to Lurkers. But Rogue is already going up to 12 and, well, that indicates to me that he certainly is putting a lot of commitment into the unit. So Nidus Worm is going to be planted over here. The SCVs in the natural expansion are going to be in a world of trouble if those Locusts land, and so can that command center be. A couple of the Hellions here trying to see if they can roast some of the drones. In the meantime, though, the worm... Oh, it is up. Can we box this? Are we going to just kill this? Okay. I don't like those Locusts landing. Splitty right here. A Splitty right here on the Locust. This was not a successful first wave, though. He got a bit of damage done, but nothing amazing. One thing you can do when you do fly those Locusts is quickly like box select them and then there's right-click movement. If you don't micro them very specifically, the Locust will land pretty much right away. This is one of those unit compositions where as time goes by, the Terran army is going to be significantly better. Whereas the Zerg army here is pretty much already maxed out and we don't really have that much stuff here. 3 additional factories, 6 additional Cyclones, +2. We should also go for the second upgrade here in just a moment. The +2 armor. Where's this Locust wave gonna go, Rogue? Okay, we're looking for a mineral line. Maybe this one can be a little bit more successful. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Yeah, that's certainly better. Also, since there's quite a bit of lost mining time. But if Ryung manages to max out, if Ryung manages to get close to like 100 army supply, currently he's at 55, he should be able to just waltz all over this Zerg. In the meantime, he's doing a good job here, securing that 4th base. 5th command center coming up. We have quite a bit of economy here for Taran in general. Yeah, I think it's about time that Rogue switches away to something else. Now, he's got into link speed, okay. He's got into a Spire, but we don't actually have a Hive or anything just yet. So I would imagine this is not going to be for Brood Lords, but probably for Mutalisks? A little bit strange. Maybe that's the plan. I'm not exactly sure. Roach Ravager Swarmhouse into Mutas is weird, but maybe he doesn't need it because this sort of Locust Wave is fantastic. That's a good number of siege tanks going down. A lot of damage here being dealt by the Zerg player. And while I did lose a bit of supply, these units for Zerg are relatively cheap. Look at the money right now in the bank. Rogue can keep making Roaches and Ravagers here for days. Two very ambitious Cyclones, though, have decided that this is the way that they want to end their lives. Well, maybe they will be able to get away with it. Ryung, by the way, not going into the second armory upgrade here in the end. It is important to stay on top of those. Even though Locusts do a lot of damage, armor is still nice. Although, if you have to choose only one, attack is certainly the way to go. Hatchery, by the way, lives. Maybe a good rebuild. Another Locust Wave. Oh, another big one. Another big one. A lot of Terran units survive with minimal HP, but that was good, though, for Rogue. He also managed to deny an entire base worth of mining, and even though a 5th command center just now finished up, Ryung is going to have a very hard time securing all of this. Yeah, and this is one of the issues with Terran Mech. I like Terran Mech, I love to see it, but this is just one of the many problems that you can run into. Rogue is running circles around it. This is one of the very few Zerg army compositions that is actually cost efficient. Most of the time, Zergs will be losing a lot more resources than they will be gaining. Oh, that's a big Locust Wave. Oh, that's a big one. I mean, yeah, the Blue Flame Hellbats are cleaning the Locust up relatively well. You know what? That actually helped out a ton. These couple of bad boys walking around with their flamethrowers out, that is making life more manageable. In the meantime, by the way, +1 air weapons is researching, +1 flyer. But there's no flying unit currently out on the map. Very curious. He's prioritizing that before the second Evo. That is worm inside the main base to try to get this Terran player off his doorstep. A couple of Hellions being split off, and you know what? Ryung is actually stabilizing here. The Swarmhouse must have another wave available at this point, and it's important to stay up on top of all of that. If you don't actually move in quickly, those Swarmhouse are gonna, well, be wasting potential damage. A couple of Blue Flame Hellions finally finding a bit of an opportunity. Roaches are trailing behind, but this is going to be quite costly because Blue Flame does kill stuff real fast. In the meantime, 3 Hellbats managed to get the job done. All of those Hellions and Hellbats, though, will get cleaned up eventually. How about this wave here at the front? Looks like the Hellbats are good against that situation as well. Now, Cyclones are, of course, capable of shooting up. Then again, though, if Mutas are indeed going to be the weapon of choice here for Rogue, you really do want at least a couple of Thors. If Rogue suddenly, well, say, like, for example, makes 25 Mutas here, it's going to be exceptionally hard to kill that with just Cyclones. I think that's probably the plan. Try to catch the Terran player way off guard. Try to force them to go only siege tanks and Hellions. And then in the meantime, you, well, when you lose units, you transition slowly towards mass muta. Alternatively, you could go into a Greater Spire as well, but judging by the fact that he started up the +2 flyer attacks before the Hive, or sorry, after the Hive, it means that he's not going to be able to go into a Greater Spire very smoothly at all. Okay. So, I'm assuming Ryung is trying to see if he can get to a maxed out state and then roll across the map. Rogue, by the way, only at 51 workers. Yeah, I think he's noticing that right now too. Decides to add on 10 additional drones. It's good to definitely have at least like 65, maybe 70 or so or SCVs. Well, SCVs too, but drones in this particular conversation. It is important to get at least a bit of income. A lot of those workers have been dying. Siege tank count is looking mighty fine though. Ryung, by the way, definitely still favoring that more passive playstyle, huh? I was wondering about that. I was wondering if he was mostly just doing that against Shin. But it seems like he's just really enjoying the I'm gonna max out and then push across the map type of approach. Interestingly enough, though, this is not an army that has any ghosts in it. So this is just pure Terran Mech, which is good, but I wouldn't rank it amongst the best Terran unit comps. Really, all of the best Terran unit compositions, all of the S-tier unit compositions, all have Ghost in them. Ghost Liberator, generally speaking, really good, and Ryung doesn't have either of those 2 units. So even though he seems to try and go for that Death Ball approach, he's going for like a good Death Ball, but not the best Death Ball. This really reminds me of Brood War, though. The way that we have a potential Muta transition at some point on the horizon. One that Taran is not going to be able to prepare against very easily. It is a very curious way to play it out. Most of the time in StarCraft 2, we have higher tech units on the back of this. Like, for example, Lurkers would be a great choice. You could, for example, see Brute Lords. Even Ultras kind of have their place. But for Mutas to be that clutch unit, at least that seems to be the plan. Not what we usually see. Honestly, I'm not even sure exactly if Rogue is going to need it, though. If he takes, like, one really good engagement, I can imagine Ryung would tap out. But there's the Mutas, yeah. Mutas coming up. A late-game mass Muta transition here. +3 flyer attacks is researching. These Roaches and Ravagers are pretending that they're gonna die, I guess. This is just to open up more supply. 17 Mutas. Now, it is absolutely critical, though, that this does not get shown to the Terran. Because if they fire up a round of Thors, like 4, 5, 6 Thors, absolutely decimate Mutalisks. So I think the plan is to try and see if he can shut this down really quickly. Yep, loses more Roach Ravager on purpose. Now the Mutas, though, have been spotted. 11 additional Cyclones are coming up. I find this a very ballsy play from Rogue. Let's see if it plays out well. Ryung is on the creep. His army is looking good. He's making a ton of Cyclones. He apparently believes that he can counter the Mutas with Cyclones. I'm not exactly sure if I agree with that. There's the Thors finally started up. I think those should have been started up a little while ago. More Mutas, though, hit the battlefield. And obviously, if the Cyclones decide to drive away, that would mean that the siege tanks stay alive, or are going to be next, rather. They're not going to be able to stay alive, but it looks like Cyclones are pretty good. 16 more Mutas coming up? I don't know, Rogue. I don't, like, imagine if we didn't make, like, what is this, like 35 Mutas or so? Imagine we didn't spend all that money. It's even more. He made like 40 Mutas. Imagine we made like 12 Brute Lords instead. Hell of a lot cheaper and a hell of a lot better, but you know what? I'm here for it. The Mutas aren't chasing all of this down. Big Daddy Thor should be out. There he is. I'm here. Click me. That's my best Thor impression. It's not very good. Locust in the meantime, though. Dude, this is Swarm Host Mutalisk. He's magic boxing siege tanks. Okay. Building armor has been denied. That would have been a nice upgrade some time ago. Oh, that siege tank managed to escape. Yeah, I can't blame Rogue for this. He's going back to Roach Ravager. So if your opponent, I guess, is going Mass Cyclone Thor to try and counter a million Mutalisks, you can overwhelm them again with Roach Ravager. This looks like one of those Zerg build orders that you dream of, right? It's one of those builds that you think of at 3 in the morning when you wake up. You're like, oh, Swarm Host followed by Mass Muta and then back to Roaches. What a brilliant plan. But then, it doesn't quite go the way that you had it envisioned. Even though this is still looking like a Rogue victory, it is looking like a much closer victory than it ever needed to be. Ryung is slowly bleeding out. I say that. It's not like Rogue has a lot of income. He's only on 54 drones here. He has taken a lot of bases, but he's never actually had that much economy in general. I mean, he's got a bit of a boost now, but nothing amazing. This is still a winnable game for Ryung. It's just a very chaotic one and needs to make sure he protects his bases. Balling everything up in one big clump, suboptimal. Mutas providing high ground vision for Nidus Worm to send in Swarm Hosts. It's like Rogue is doing a challenge, you know? Like, he's only making the worst Zerg units. I would say that Mutas or Swarm Hosts are probably the worst Zerg units in the game right now. Am I missing anything? No, those are definitely the worst. Maybe this is a dare, you know? It's like, I dare you to win a game against a pro gamer. I guess he made a lot of Roach Ravager. Nah, it doesn't really count. They're very situational, right? Like, Swarm Hosts can be amazing, which you've seen in this game. Mutas can be amazing too. But both of them are, let's call them highly specialized. You can call them highly specialized. That is option A. Option B would be garbage. That's another way to describe them. Ooh, Javelin missiles, baby. That interaction, by the way, in the upcoming patch is gonna get a lot better for the Thor. I don't really know why we're buffing the Thor damage against Mutas, but hey. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm not sure. They will have less range on those missiles, but if you see the Thors in the upcoming balance patch fire, the Mutas are gonna get decimated. Another round of Locust over here, though. Roach Ravager getting in. I mean, those Blue Flame Hellbats are doing a fantastic job. The yellow mining machines are here too, and that's gonna give Ryung a nice little boost. He's gonna chase this army away. Super difficult game to read, though, at this point, right? Especially for Taran. Mutas still have a lot of, utility, at least in keeping this Taran player occupied at home. I think Ryung, if you are in his shoes right now, you've seen so many different units. How do you know how good your army truly is? Rogue is maxed out. He's got a comfortable bank. Not an amazing one, but at least a little bit. I would love to see some gases here start up as well. Yeah, so this is what I was trying to highlight earlier, right? The Swarm Host, look at this. 21,000 minerals lost for Zerg. 27 for the Terran player. He's lost a lot more minerals, and that's due to these Locusts. The Swarm Hosts are one of the very few units for Zerg that generally trade cost efficiently. Now, usually that would be a disaster balance-wise, but because they are so supply heavy, it also means that Zerg can't mine as much, because you can't make a whole lot of Swarm Hosts and then also have a ton of economy on the back of it. Well, apparently this is where we're gonna decide the game. Ryung has to, he has decided that he's gonna bring everything that he's got across the map. He's no longer scanning. It seems to me like he stopped making SCVs a while ago. He's got a absolutely humongous army. 130 supply here. Yes, it's a slight bit less than the Zerg, but Zerg is mostly Roach Ravager Swarm Host. If this is a good engagement for Ryung, he can still bring it home. Oh, especially if Zerg decides to walk into their own biles. Locust Wave activated right over there, but those Locusts are not going to be able to achieve that much. It's going to be a long time before those Locusts will once more be available. Right now is the time to strike. If Ryung can find an engagement, that would be sick. A lot of the Terran army, though, is relatively low. Obviously, there's no medevacs up in the air like we would have with a bio army. Those Thors can be repaired. Those Cyclones can get a bit of a repair as well, but if he waits until there's another Locust Wave available, I've got a feeling Rogue is going to be able to shove this Terran player off of the creep. Well, I say that. So far, this army is looking mighty scary. Rogue has a lot of minerals in the bank, but not really that good of an army. He also doesn't have any adrenal glands, so a mass Zergling transition would not hit nearly as hard. Another Locust Wave, though, is available once more. How many Blue Flame Hellbats can we get into the fight? A decent amount. I think Rogue, with his reinforcements coming in, will be able to clear the job. I think he should just barely be okay. Man, he really needs adrenal glands. Such an important upgrade. It's like 40% attack speed on Zerglings. He can still, I guess, allow the siege tanks to deal friendly fire. If the Lings are on top of the Cyclones, the siege tanks will shoot the Zerglings, at which point the siege tanks will probably kill the Cyclones for him, but yeah, Ryung realizes where this game is going. He decides to tap out, but what a fascinating, we can use the word fascinating. What a fascinating game number one. Next up, we find ourselves on Site Delta. That was one of the most fascinating games of Terran vs. Zerg I've ever seen. Terran deciding to just go straight up Terran Mech, but never Ghost Mech. And then Rogue decided to go Roach Ravager Swarm Host into a mass Muta transition back down to Roach Ravager. I think he managed to finish the +3 flyer attacks, but he never really got any value out of it. Such a... yeah, an interesting army composition. Even though I think across the board, most of the decisions were what the kids would call mid. Not particularly great. Not terrible either. They are fun to watch, right? I do like seeing those type of games. I mean, that is one of the main criticisms that I usually really... Ovi speed. That's really fast. That's one of the main criticisms that I see for high-level StarCraft. A lot of folks are like, well, the viewer games are more interesting because the pro gamers are extremely predictable. And that's true. I like seeing the perfection and the chaos that the games bring. Never is one game of StarCraft 2 identical to the next. There are so many different possibilities, obviously, but it is fun to see, yeah, a little bit of unit variety. Now, what's the OV speed for? The OV speed is weird. I don't think Ryung is going to be able to scan this anytime soon. He gets a drone. That's pretty good. Overlord speed is really nice if you want to be 100% safe against everything. The problem with OV speed is that it's costly. And then at the same time, you're also not producing a queen. So, oftentimes what it can kind of feel like, right? So here's the reasoning as to why I don't personally like Overlord speed build orders that much, at least at this level. If you see that your opponent is doing something stupid, and they're going for some sort of all-in, congrats, you've just scouted that you're gonna die. Because now you have one less queen for the actual engagement. You've spent 100 minerals, 100 gas on something that doesn't help you out for the base defense at all. Like, yes, you can start your preparation slightly earlier, but generally speaking, that knowledge is not that useful. It's a great upgrade, but I don't love it in the early game. Maybe, though, with the upcoming balance patch, right? With the queen being more expensive, maybe we'll see it a little bit more. They did make the upgrade very cheap once upon a time, a long time ago. Back in my day. And OV speed was actually very strong back then. I would say most of the time Overlord speed is something you want to research when you're also researching, like, Burrow, right? Like, after you've got your important stuff ready to go, as we're transitioning towards what seems like a late game, that's a good moment to go into Overlord speed. Well, at least Rogue now knows exactly what he's playing against, and he's playing against a very normal build. Is he able to cut any corners because of this? Not really. We're going Lair. We're going Baneling Nest. We're going into a second Gas Geyser. It looks to me like we're gonna play Ling Bane into what will probably be Hydra Lurker. At least that's the vibe I'm getting here. In the meantime, though, Ryung not going for any shenanigans here this time around. No Terran Mech, none of that. Just the most conventional approach that you can take here as Terran. So, gonna be a whole lot of bio units. Barracks number 4 and 5 are coming up right now. Evo Chambers in the meantime. We should see Baneling speed here for Zerg in just a moment as soon as the lair is done. Second Gas Geyser will finish up in the main base. And Baneling speed should start up right now. Okay, try again. Right now. Okay, Rogue. Try, okay. Lair is done. We should start up Overlords. Or, sorry, no. Lair is done. We should start up Baneling speed right now. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I think we were slightly late on that one, but almost perfection. That is very late now. Mostly because we're trying to do a build where we go really fast or really fast Baneling speed. Kind of defeats the purpose if we don't actually build the upgrade ASAP. He was busy trying to make a bunch of stuff and harass on the other side of the map and continue the scouting, but I guess it's fine as long as he finishes up the Baneling speed upgrade before Taran decides to move out. And the first likely moment where Taran can push out is when 1-1 finishes. Doesn't necessarily have to get it done, but there's Barracks 6, 7, and 8. Yeah, this is Barracks 6, 7, and 8 before a 4th command center. So that means that Ryung is going to double down. This is the build that Oliveira seems to be very fond of. It's one of the very few ways in which Serral loses against Taran. The Eight-Barracks can catch anybody off guard. Now, this is technically a tricky build to scout. You'd expect like a second factory at the front, for example, or a 4th command center somewhere. If Zerg does not scout for it, they can get overwhelmed. It's important that Rogue does not get carried away here making drones. If he keeps making army right now, as he fires up 7 drones, if he keeps making army right now, he should be able to defend it relatively easily. So one thing I really do like here for Rogue is that he's not going into Hydras. He's not going into a Hive. He's not doing anything but make Ling Bane. And as long as he can actually spend his money, so that's one of the downsides, I guess, of playing Ling Bane. But as long as he can actually spend all of his units or all of his larvae here on Zerglings and get his minerals and gas down to 0, he should be in a phenomenal spot. That's why he's making a couple extra hedge. Just to get that larva generation going a little bit quicker. Because it is pivotal for him to spend all of his money. But the idea here for Taran is to just pump out a ton of stuff. He did decide to go for tech labs over here, even though we don't have a Ghost Academy. Generally speaking, we don't see a Ghost Academy that quickly with this opener. Taran needs to get some sort of damage done, though, with this push. Yeah, this is what I was concerned by. Look at the amount of money here for Rogue. If he does not spend his resources soon, he's going to be in a world of trouble. He's got 10 larvae, but he needs a lot more than that. Yeah, if you're going to play Ling Bane, you need to be 100% on top of all of your Queen Injects. He decides to go for another one of those macro hatcheries here. But this attack has very real potential to end the game. Ryung's army at this point is massive. 66 SCVs, 2-2 on the close horizon here. No 4th command center, but you can still start one up now that you're maxed out. We'll probably see one here in just a moment, but he's mostly got his eggs in one large basket. And that barracks, or that basket is called barracks, right? Like, he's just got a ton of Marines. Now, he is a little early for 2-2. But this is still a scary attack. Rogue, by the way, has finally spent his money. But he's already decided that he's giving up on one of those expansions. Rogue never started up 2-2, by the way, which is very curious. He had so much money in the bank, but he never started it. Okay, if Ryung can micro this well, so if he can prevent that, he's gonna have potential. Thank you for showing that. He's gonna have potential to win the game with this particular push. It's just simply so much Terran. Like, in this particular instance, it's the Terran player who's the swarm. Apparently, Rogue decides to make a very interesting decision to engage this off-creep, which is exactly what Ryung wants. It is a lot of banelings rolling through the cracks, but with some decent micro. That was not the right call there for Zerg whatsoever. Zero reason to push off-creep. He decided to engage that long before he really needed to. I guess he was hoping he could fight that Terran army before 2-2 finishes, but I mean, it was already done. If he clicked one of those Marines, he would have seen it. And likewise, he didn't have 2-2 himself. I think this game was just a little bit messy here from Rogue. Good strategic decision from Ryung, who's not won this just yet. But as long as he micros like that, he should be able to obtain the victory. These are 2-2 Marines against 1-1 Ling Bane. It is just such a noticeable difference. Those Zerglings seem to just die. GG gets called. It's Ryung who wins game number 2. And that means our final game for today takes place on Oceanborn. It is interesting, by the way, how very few Terrans seem to be fans of that very quick double barracks wall off on the low ground. We used to see it a ton. Seems like it's fallen out of favor a little bit. I'm not exactly sure if Ryung was a huge fan of it, but considering Maru played it all the time, I would imagine that Ryung was also playing it all the time. Yeah, I don't know if this is fair, but in my mind, Ryung always plays very similarly to Maru. He's like little Maru, you know? Except he's quite a bit older than Maru. Plus, he's quite a bit taller than Maru, too. Anyways. It is a very similar approach most of the time. 3rd command center coming up nice and quick. We don't have a 3rd hatchery just yet. What are we gonna do, Mr. Rogue? He mined a lot of additional gas. This looks to me like Rogue is doing one of his 2-base plays again. I think we're gonna go lair. I think this is gonna be a lair. Sometimes Rogue does this like... Really? Sometimes he does this like weird 2-base lair into a really quick Spire build. I don't like that build whatsoever. He's been busy microing on the other side of the map, I guess. Got 2 SCVs. But why did we mine so much gas? We're not doing anything with it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, not the end of the world right here for Ryung. His 3rd command center is significantly quicker than that 3rd hatchery for the Zerg. So losing 2 SCVs is totally fine. Oh, creep tumor. Nicely done. Good snipe on a creep tumor. I'm confused why Rogue mines so much gas. Like, why did we go for such a quick link speed and then not use up the gas? Like, he clearly... It could be that he's a person, and therefore he made a mistake. No, it's by design. So he purposely pulled the drones out of gas late and then added them back in relatively quickly. He's going for a quick Roachborn and then 2 additional gases. This is Rogue going for what seems to be a Ravager Zergling all-in. I'm saying that right now with a question mark at the end of the sentence because he's still adding on drones, which is a little curious. If he doesn't make Ravagers, he's going to be sitting at 1 million gas. But he's still making drones, so he can't really make a lot of roaches either. What are we going to do with the gas? Okay. Well, lair? We've had resources for a lair for like 3 minutes. Okay. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, Ryung playing a much more conventional game. This is that Korean style, man. I feel like a lot of the times the Koreans play a lot more feeling-based. Over here in the beautiful country of Europe, one of the best countries in the world, we don't have feelings. No, fun fact. The only feeling I ever have is tired or hungry. Those are the type of feelings that I have. There is no denying, though, that this would never be a build that, like, Raynar would play or that Sero would play. This is, like, the furthest from a spreadsheet approach that you can go. It was mining a bunch of extra gas. There's a lot of suboptimal plays here, but yeah, obviously, broadly speaking, it doesn't matter that much as long as your, like, general mid-game is gonna be correct. Assuming Taran doesn't go for, like, a big timing attack. And that's not really the approach that Ryung likes to play. I mean, he went for the Eight-Barracks push. The Eight-Barracks all in the previous game, but nothing too early before that. I think this is Rogue just having a good time. He's scouting the opponent, and he's making decisions based off of that. And even though technically some of it is suboptimal, he's good enough to be able to get away with it. And maybe he believes that he can get away with it against somebody like Ryung. But I think if he does this sort of thing, like say he does this against Clem, Clem is gonna tear him apart. Banshee coming up. Don't do it, Roach! Don't do it! Armory in the back of the main base. And we should be seeing the nice double upgrades here eventually. This is a pretty quick armory, but it's only 50 gas. Not the end of the world. Let's see. What can we do with the Hive? We don't actually have a transition here towards a Lurker Den yet. There is a Hydra Den, okay. It is important to get that Lurker upgrade rolling as quickly as possible if that's the plan. Apparently the dens get to stick together. How beautiful. You're a pit. You're not a den. You're a chamber. The chambers get to stick together. No. You like to see that. We have a cavern as well, I guess, in the Ultralisk cavern. It could have been an infestation den, you know? It would have worked. Or a Hydralisk pit. It would work. Could we have an infestation cavern? Yeah. Infestation cavern does sound kind of dirty, though. Anyways, no. +1/+1, finishing up for both players. We have a second factory over here, down on the low ground, and the Overseer will be... Okay. Jimmy! Oh, jeez. Never mind, I thought Jimmy managed to get the job done, but... How do you think they come up with some of these upgrade names and some of the structure names in this game, though? You could definitely have a very easy random name generator. Some of it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. One of my favorite examples of that is the Roach Speed upgrade and then the Roach Tunneling Claws upgrade. So this is Roach Speed over here. I've always thought that the Tunneling Claws upgrade and the Roach Speed upgrade are reversed. The icons, that is. For some reason, if you look at the pictures right next to each other, so we don't have Tunneling Claws in this game, but some of it is just a little bit random. We don't really know why certain things are the way they are. I guess we can understand the pool, right? The spawning pool. It's a pool. But why is this a den? Why is this a cavern? Or an ultra cavern, rather? Why is this a pit? Nobody knows. Lurkers are available, though. Marines trying to go around the site. Can we do some splitties? Oh, God. All right, there we go. Keep them alive. Maximizing the damage right here is Ryung. Loses one of those, but not the end of the world. Tech labs. Added into the mix. We need one more over here so we can actually start up that ghost production. So Ryung going into Terran Mech on Golden Aura. I guess Golden Aura has a nice defensive map. But apparently that's the only map where we're going to be executing something like that. Okay, there's the additional tech lab. It's important to start up those ghosts here nice and quickly, because if you're going up against a ton of lurkers, you, well, will certainly run into some issues. Oh, are you the bait? Jeez, that's mean. I swear we're all unburrowed. It's just me. Just run on over here. Oh, okay. Here we go. Double Nidus worm coming up right here for Rogue. Ah, dude. Parasitic bombs. We need to make sure we... that's ugly. Okay. That's a lot of medevacts going down unnecessarily. Maybe I've been watching too many Clem games, and Clem is obviously really good at that sort of thing, but it is critical that we do not give away units for free. I guess at the very least Ryung is opening up a little bit of supply here to go into siege tanks and a bunch of ghosts, so that's nice, but Rogue is certainly somebody who can stress multitasking, and that wasn't really the start of it yet. This was mostly just singular engagements. 13 swarm hosts. The mass swarm host army is back. This is what Rogue has been experimenting with over the last few months. Mass Overseer, Mass Changeling, send them through. Some of them will likely slip through the cracks, at which point you can go for double Nidus or even triple Nidus relatively easily. Terrans can obviously stop this if they snipe every single one of the changelings, but the thing is really hard to determine if something is a changeling or not. Now, it is interesting because Rogue has had a lot of success with this over the last couple months. We've seen quite a few games where that's working out in his favor. But there's also a lot of games where the other top-level Zergs don't bother doing this. I am not entirely sure. Like, why do we not see the other top-level Zergs experiment with this as well? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they have been experimenting with it and just don't like it, but this seems to be the result. Triple Nidus in the main base. Suddenly, there's an infestation over here, and this is by far the most successful execution of this build that I've seen so far. Look at this. 23 additional Overlords on the production tab. Normally, I would call that a mistake. I'd be like, haha, laser lords, so funny. He's gonna add on more Overseers. Unless Terran decides to go for a big push. But these Overlords are likely all to be turned into Overseers to then, well, make a lot more Changelings and to just keep on spreading the infestation. We do have a lack of a liftoff. That's a little expensive. There they are, man. We're back up to 23 plus 14. Do we do math? Math is dangerous. Let's not do that. 23 plus 14. No need to make yourself look silly. That's one of those things where I can confidently say 37. And then, you know, I can look at the video afterwards and realize I made a gigantic mistake. So doing any sort of math is dangerous. But we are arriving at a whole load of those bad boys. Oh my god, there they are. And the armies of changelings are not gonna stop rolling around the map. So while Ryung right now, and that's what I like about this build, while Ryung is busy putting fires out left, right, and center, when the first... Look at this! He's creating a changeling force field! Once the floodgates have been opened, they're very difficult to close. Because whilst you're busy dealing with the first wave of swarm hosts, Nidus worms rather, when you're busy dealing with the first wave of changelings, the next wave is coming, and then the next wave is coming, and there's a push up here, a push down there. Finally, by the way, the Terran army managed to escape their own surroundings, but a couple of the changelings managed to slip by the rest of them. One little roach here probably needs to step back just a couple of moments, couple of steps, but okay. At least the units in the main base will be able to deny the first of the worms, but not the second one in time. Aw, dude, this seems like such a pain in the butt to play against. In the meantime, we have a, what seems to be a Viper Broodlord transition. At this point, I'm not sure that Rogue really needs it. Rogue seems to be a fan of these strange compositions. Don't tell me he's gonna get another command center, okay? If he gets another command center killed from the high ground because he doesn't lift off, this is, it's gonna hurt my feelings. Actually, I just discussed how we don't have feelings. Anyways, maybe I'm not that European after all. Jimmy, no! Jimmy, there's gonna be worms! Oh, Jimmy! Jimmy! Oh, God. Rest in pieces, Jimmy. Floating to the surface of Oceanborn at the very least. I feel like Rogue sometimes just goes shopping, man. Like, you look at his upgrades, and he's just... I feel like he's just clicking his structures, and he's just buying everything. This is like payday for Rogue. He's clicking structures, and he's buying whatever he needs. He doesn't really need it, but you know what? He can afford it. If there was a credit card system in StarCraft 2, Rogue would have to be very scared of it. Now, Rogue also is sitting at 97 drones. And that's a ridiculous amount. Honestly, it's at a point where I wonder if it's a little bit too much. Ryung's army, this... Oh, God. Well, there's lurkers over here killing everything. Never mind. When I started that sentence, Ryung's army was huge, but he just walked through a valley of spines. Some interesting mining going on over here, too, now that that command center in that location is gone. Okay, careful. He does get the banelings. There's a lot more on the back of this, though. Ryung, oh my God, he's covering it. Good luck splitting your marines when you can't see them. I gotta say, I love the mass overseer styles. It is a breath of fresh air. Very fun.